I was out to dinner last night and was didn't look at my phone, picked up my phone, and it was like the rugby league world had kind of exploded. There'll be a handful of clubs probably lining up now to security services. The most talked about one obviously being the Dolphins, the idea of moving back to Queensland. He's from there. He was a Redcliffe junior. It's hard to get a read on the Tigers because I remember I was at the Parramatta game last week and the first 30 minutes was some of the most diabolical football I've seen.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
BLT, we call it Big League Tuesday. What a pleasure to welcome Jake Duke, Fox Sports Sideline. He does a whole lot of other work as well, but we see his face in the NRL all the time. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No problem. Pleasure to be here.
Let's start with Daly Cherry-Evans. How weird was that yesterday as he's announcing his future and saying he's leaving Manly. They're on a couple of hours beforehand on the rival channel, the Manly CEO and their execs are offering him another deal.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre. I have to admit, I was out to dinner last night and was didn't look at my phone, picked up my phone, and it was like the rugby league world had kind of exploded, went into overdrive, kind of started working backwards to piece it all together how it happened. But yeah, it appears as though there's been talk a long time now for around Daly Cherry-Evans' future, about Manly potentially only offering him 1 year deal, and he wanted two and things like that. But if you listen to Daly Cherry-Evans last night, he kind of said that he'd been sitting on this decision since December, really thinking about what he wanted to do, and he's basically made up his mind that he's done at Manly, and them offering the 2 year deal, which so originally, basically, from what I can gather, it was broken on the 6 p.m. news here last night by Channel 9. Then NRL 360 comes on at 6:30 p.m. here, and they got a text from Tony Mesdrop, the CEO of Manly, saying, "Oh no, we do want to offer him a 2 year deal." Almost like they were kind of pushed into Cherry-Evans, what he had said on the news earlier, that he was done, and they maybe thought it was a negotiation tactic, so they offered the 2 year deal. And he came out on 9 on a 100% footy about 2 hours later or so and said, "Oh no, that deal doesn't matter. I've made this decision.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it since December." So pretty wild. He said he is open to the idea of retiring, but wants to play on. I can't imagine that he'll retire. I think there'll be a handful of clubs probably lining up now to security services. The most talked about one obviously being the Dolphins, the idea of moving back to Queensland. He's from there. He was a Redcliffe junior. His old man played there, I believe. So that's the kind of opening mark. But then you think about, there's plenty of clubs in the NRL that would need a halfback now, and we just saw the money kind of got tossed around for Dylan Brown. So Daly Cherry-Evans is probably thinking, I've got 2 years left in my career here probably. He could capitalise on a big money offer, and also, have his pick of places to go, potential premiership winning places. So, he seems to be in the box seat at the moment.
He's gone into business for himself by the look of it. And at 36, I don't know, the last couple of years, I think a lot of us have wondered, when's he going to retire? But as you say, he still looks super fit. He's playing really well. I mean, you saw that even in Origin last year. I mean, he's at that level, isn't he? So he can easily go on, in your mind, for 2 more years?
Oh, at least. You think with sports science these days, these guys are just playing later and later. It'll only be a matter of time till we see someone play into their 40s. He could be that player. He said this year that he's going to think over the next month about whether he plays Origin. He wants to, but whether it's the best thing for his body and for Manly, whether he'll play. I get the sneaking suspicion he might retire from Origin purely to enhance his marketability as well.
Right. So he's not missing games and so forth.
A team that's in the market for him is going to be much more incentivized by the fact that they won't lose him. His sole focus will be on them for these 2 years, and also not risking his body, because at the age of 36, 37, obviously more susceptible to injury. Although he hasn't been over his life, and some players just seem to be like that. Their body hold up really well. He seems to be that guy. I can't think of a major injury that Cherry-Evans has had. So I think he'll step away from Origin, but more than capable of still playing it, absolutely.
Got to be a couple of clubs, Jake. He can't go to the Roosters. Manly fans just go berserk if that's the case. Or you think Souths, or, I mean, any of those inner city Sydney clubs, you think, yeah, man, if that's the case. I think he's got to go outside of Sydney, surely.
I think it would be Queensland. I think there's probably a push to go home there. I would think that would be top of his priority list. But stranger things have happened in rugby league. I couldn't imagine him leaving Manly and going to the Roosters.
That's the first one that I thought of. I just thought, nah.
As we know, they've got the money. They've got a history of doing it. They did it with Cooper Cronk. It led to a lot of success. Again, stranger things have happened in rugby league. It's a strange game. I couldn't see it being a South Sydney thing. Parramatta or any of that stuff. I think he'll go. If he goes somewhere, or he's going somewhere, but if he plays on, I think it'll be in Queensland.
If you're liking what you're looking at, people and what you're listening to, hit the subscribe button. It really does help us here on the DSPN. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers as quick as we possibly can. All right. The NRL after 3 rounds, it's been brilliant, hasn't it? Look, we're talking a lot about Super Rugby here in New Zealand, and I don't know how much attention it's getting in Australia, but with 4 teams in the top 6, it should be getting some good headlines. But just the evenness of the competition, the unpredictability of it, the NRL mirroring that over 3 weeks. You can't sit there every week and think you're going to get all of those picks right. No chance.
No, absolutely not. Tipster's nightmare the first couple of rounds.
That's the best thing about it, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, who would have picked that crazy game a couple of rounds ago where the Roosters upset the Panthers? Manly putting a score on the Raiders the other day when Canberra were kind of the hot team coming into round 3. Even Penrith pushing Melbourne on Thursday night just gone, with Nathan Cleary getting knocked out in the first couple of minutes. So missing Dylan Edwards. It's all up in the air. Parramatta pushing the Bulldogs, almost beating them on Sunday. It is one of those competitions, the NRL, where if on their day anyone can win, it's just the matter of the consistent teams do it more often. The good teams do it more often, but. Yeah, pretty crazy. We do find that generally early round football is a bit like that. It's up and down, and then the cream starts to rise to the top a little bit when everyone kind of gets there.
Yeah, 5 or 6 games in or something, yeah.
Yeah.
So, look, I don't want to go through every team because you don't have time for that, but I'll just throw a couple of names at you. That Melbourne Storm side, top of the table, they haven't lost yet. Dogs haven't lost as well. But do they, if you just get the feeling that this is their year again, that they are the best team there, and injuries obviously dictate a hell of a lot of it, but just if they manage to stay with that team, is there any team that is going to be better than them throughout the whole course of the season?
It's hard to imagine no, but there's a couple of real X factors in there. I think Brisbane being one of them. I think Manly being one of them. We've seen when Manly's on, they're very good. They're just, sometimes 50-50 on what Manly you're going to get. But as I said, there's the building blocks there of a team that can win any kind of game. The other one, of course, is Penrith. I think people are quick to write Penrith off. I know that there was a bit of a pile-on when they got beat by the Roosters in that game. But then you watch the way they played against Melbourne and realise, the system is the star at Penrith, and they know they don't need to be that good at this time of year. Their start to a season is always hard because they're defending premiers, because they're a big-ticket item. They get all the hard games early. They get rivalries early, and then throughout the middle of the year, probably after around 4 or 5, they'll start to play some of those lower-ranked sides. They'll get their mojo, they'll get going, they'll have some comfortable wins, they'll get up the ladder, and then by the back end of the season, post-Origin, they're usually hitting their straps. So they time their runs perfectly. Penrith, Melbourne always start really well, and we have seen sometimes that, especially in the last decade, or last 4 or 5 years, that they just haven't had that gear to go with Penrith at the end of the year. I would never write off the Panthers. That's all. I think they've realised that February, March doesn't really matter that much.
And, it's important to make the point, I think, with Penrith as well, is that, we look at Nathan and we look at how their attacking power and everything, yet defensively, I go back a couple of years ago to the grand final where they went, I think after they'd lost the grand final, the next year, they went through that playoff series and they conceded like 8 points and 6 points and 9 points or 10 points a game. I might not have it exactly right, but they just defended so well and was so hard to score again. And then you look at the grand final last year, again, just their defence. So despite the fact that Nathan, I don't know what his state is or how many matches he misses, how important is that for them, that they have that iron bloody wall, mate, and you've got to, over 26 games and playoff games, get past that, and that improves obviously throughout the season as the combinations grow and players get battle-hardened as well.
Yeah, because I think initially the one thing people have kind of noticed as they start the season is defensively they haven't been as strong as they probably have started other seasons. Like, as I said, that they can be slow to start a year and their attack can be a little off, or they might not win games by big margins or whatever. It's more people looking at the conceding of points. The Roosters, They conceded 38.
Yeah,
Melbourne scored 30-something the other night. But I think, again, that's probably just the swapping and changing of their defensive systems, people being in and out. As I said, Dylan Edwards out, guys kind of coming in who are new. The reshuffling of the team so much, I think you'll find that once Penrith settle into their rhythm, they will be the defensive side that we know that kind of concedes below 14, 15 points every year, which is shown you need to do to win a comp in the modern game. But I think that's the thing that people have seen more than anything is like, their attack, the system will work as it always does. Defensively, they haven't looked as strong, and that's why people probably have been questioning them a little bit. But I think it's probably just teething problems.
Jake, this West Tigers side that the Warriors are going to play on Sunday, so looking forward to this game, last game of the round, 8:15 here in New Zealand, and the Warriors side, which did cop a big serve, man, and deservedly so after just failing in Vegas, but have bounced back. Impressive scoreline, 36-16 against Manly, and then really gutsy effort to knock that Roosters side off. And it was a touch-and-go game, but, that was the Warriors at their best, playing good basic footy and getting the job done. But a Tigers side that lost to Newcastle and has bounced back, scoring 30 points on 2 opponents since. How good is that Tigers side?
Yeah, it's hard to get a read on the Tigers because I remember I was at the Parramatta game last week, and the first 30 minutes was some of the most diabolical football I've seen. From both sides. And then the Tigers kind of got going, but then you wondered, is that just Parramatta was so bad
so
that
awful.
day?
Yeah,
and
that's
the Tigers kind of had to put a score on them. And then the win against the Dolphins, again, scrappy on the weekend, but I thought they did something we don't see from Tigers sides, we haven't seen from Tigers sides in a while, is that they were down and they came from behind and they won a game that, they were probably in the box seat to lose at that point. You see another Tigers game in previous years where they're down 18-6 or 18-12 and, it would end up 34-12 or 30-12, you know what I mean? So it's a whole different kind of mentality, it looks like, from the Tigers. They're a hard team to get a gauge on. I also find probably a little bit similar with the Warriors at the moment in terms of that first up loss to Canberra in Vegas, and then the 2 games after they've looked really good. So I'm interested to see what they can kind of come back to Australia.
Fascinating game,
and dish up, coming to Campbelltown on Sunday, playing the Tigers. I think it's a good marker and a good test of both these sides.
For both teams,
because the form guide on the Tigers, as I said, they beat Parramatta and they beat the Dolphins. Both teams struggling. When you look at now where they're sitting in both winless. So how good the Tigers are going, and then the Warriors coming over here, playing in Australia, obviously has always been more difficult than playing back home. So it'll be a good marker for both these sides, I think.
And how are you enjoying the sideline, mate? So when you're out there, do you cop it from any of the fans at all? Are they giving it to you the whole time? Because you keep your focus well.
Sometimes. Well, look, most of the time we've got big headphones on, so you kind of can't hear the crowd. But when you walk around, especially more at those regional grounds, you hear some things people yell out.
The crowd's right there, people. If you've ever you can just about grab the guy's hot dog, right?
To be fair, they're mostly pretty good. They're pretty funny. They'll yell out like just they want you to give them a wave or something, or yell out something funny. Never anything.
Oh, that's good.
anything bad. It's always just good banter, I think.
It's just a fantastic comp, isn't it? How good to have it back, mate.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Look, it's a long year at times, and it has its I think it's peaks and troughs. I think the NRL over across 27, 30 odd rounds, but you find yourself in a long off season, kind of waiting for the footy to come back, and then it hits. You probably kind of have like a really solid 9-10 weeks into Magic round. Then you get the Origin, and then you probably get the post-Origin dip before finals, I always find.
Yep. That's understandable, because you get so high after the Origin, especially if you're a New South Welshman like both of us.
Yeah. Well, we won last year, which was good.
Mate,
but it goes in waves, I find. Early in the season, it's obviously like very exciting, very just good to be back on the road. But I think you find you just have those natural waves and progression. I guess also with me, you're traveling a lot as well, so that can take it out of you at different times depending on where you are and how much you're doing and what games you're going to. But it is a real road show, and it just keeps going and tosses up something different every week.
A hell of a show, mate. It's great viewing, and for us on this side of the Tasman, the coverage is brilliant, mate. The commentators, the guests that they have, it's a really good, slick thing to watch, and good chat. All the programs as well. We always appreciate the time that you give us, because I know you're bloody busy. So thank you very much, and hopefully we can do this again, eh?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime.
DSPN.